So, one more Sanskrit note today. The Anuswara, the M with the dot over it, is pronounced like an NG. That's why we say Nrsimhadev. We don't say Nrsimhadev. It's Nrsimhadev. That's where the Singha, we know in Hindi means lion, actually in Sanskrit. In Hindi is derived from Sanskrit. And that's why the surname Singh is so popular in India, because everybody wants to be a lion. Actually, there were a class of men who were always trained to be lion-like, in other words, Kshatriyas. So it's Bhabe Shilavatang Shreshte. All right, synonyms. Viduraha, Uvacha. Vidura said, Bhabe, towards Lord Shiva. Shilavatam, among the gentle. Shreshte, the best. Dakshaha, Daksha. Duhitrivatsalaha, being affectionate towards his daughter. Vidvesham, enmity. Akarot, did exhibit. Kasmat, why? Anadritya, neglecting. Atmajam, his own daughter. Satim, Sati. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati? Please repeat. Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati? Who's your sound engineer here? There's something that's not set right there. There's too much reverb. You need to bring down something there. Either if there's a reverb setting, you need to turn it down. It's too reverbing. It's supposed to be like a cleaner sound. So maybe you can't do it right now, but later on you need to look at or I can look at it before I leave for you. Something needs to be adjusted. Okay, Srila Prabhupada's purport. You hear that? It's like it's not set correctly. In the second chapter of the fourth canto, the cause of the dissension between Lord Shiva and Daksha, which was due to a great sacrifice arranged by Daksha for the pacification of the entire universe, is explained. Lord Shiva is described here as the best of the gentle, because he is not envious of anyone. He is equal to all living entities, and all other good qualities are present in his personality. The word Shiva means, quote, all auspicious, end of quote. No one can be an enemy of Lord Shiva's, for he is so peaceful and renounced that he does not even construct a house for his residence, but lives underneath a tree, always detached from all worldly things. The personality of Lord Shiva symbolizes the best of gentleness. Why then was Daksha, who offered his beloved daughter to such a gentle personality, inimical towards Lord Shiva so intensely that Sati, the daughter of Daksha and wife of Lord Shiva, gave up her body? Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshtarane Om Agyana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Shapichang Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyahang Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vatam Tang Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Sayatam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vatangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancho Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So being on the road a lot, I travel quite a bit. It gives one the occasion to take the bhakti pulse of every community. So as we said yesterday, the intensity of chanting and dancing and worship of the deity here, that's one indicator. Uh, Devotees should always come in the temple in that mood. Dancing and chanting is our process. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the Hare Krishna mantra, which brings along with it this chanting. Obviously, one should hear first the mantra or mantras, all mantras that we chant, and then one should chant. And then, naturally, if we're chanting nicely with concentration, you feel like moving. So you can take your own pulse. If you come to the temple and you stand like a frozen log or something, that means something is wrong. Prabhupada said once, if you have taken to this bhakti process and you're not feeling ecstasy, you're not feeling joy, something is wrong with how you're executing the process. It's not about the process. The process is pure and perfect. And it's not about anyone else. It's not that the temple managers are preventing me from feeling ecstasy, or my parents, or my spouse, or whatever. If I'm not feeling ecstasy in the execution of the bhakti process, then something is wrong with me. And Prabhupada said, and you should know, you should find out what it is and fix it. That means we're either not sincere about what we're doing, or we're not doing it properly. There may be some sincerity, but we're doing something wrong, or maybe offenses are being committed. Find out what the problem is and fix it. So I'm very happy I can report honestly by experience here that you're all very, very surrendered to the chanting and hearing process, and you dance therefore. And then the next step is prasadam. After you chant and dance, you naturally get a little hungry, so you must take prasadam. And I like to stress this when I travel. And not me, Krishna stresses this in the Bhagavad Gita. Here they are standing on a battle. It always amazes me. Krishna and Arjuna between the two armies. Krishna's going to give him instruction to make him surrender and fight. But he says this, Yagya Shishashanakshanta Muchante Sarvakilbhashan Punjate Tetagam Papam Ye Pachantyat Makarana. He's talking about eating. You think he'll be, just giving him a pep talk to fight, but he's talking about eating. He says the devotees of the Lord are freed from all sinful reaction because they offer what they eat in sacrifice. Those who don't do that, those who eat only for the pleasure of their own tongue, verily eat only sin. Why would that be important in the middle of a battle? Because he's not actually preaching to Arjuna. Arjuna is a pure devotee of Krishna. He's preaching to us to take it seriously. Don't eat anything that's not offered. Don't eat anything that's not prasadam. And as I like to remind devotees, you have to offer. That means it has to be offerable. No meat, no fish, no eggs, no onion, no garlic. When I joined, they said also no mushrooms. In other words, sattvic. Everything has to be sattvic. But Krishna later on says that you have to offer with devotion. Patram pushram palam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. Darashyame paratam. You have to offer with love and devotion. As much as we can muster. It's not that we come through the door and we already have pure love for Krishna. No, but as much as you can muster. Meaning, at least concentrate. For those who are working in the kitchen, you're cutting up sabji to offer to Krishna. Concentrate on that. Don't try to think of some pastime of Krishna and you cut your finger and blood goes in the. That's how they trained us in New York when I joined. Concentrate. Whatever service you're given to do, concentrate. That is bhakti. So if you're a driver of the Sankirtan devotees, make sure you get enough rest and concentrate on driving. Don't space out and think you have precious cargo, the lives of the devotees in your hand. And unfortunately, even when Prabhupada was here, some devotees were dying in car accident. And Prabhupada was thinking, what is going on here? You have to be, whatever service it is, cooking, driving, giving class, whatever it is, concentrate on that particular service. And that is bhakti. That is bhakti. One time, Archita Pr asked Prabhupada, because he traveled with Prabhupada, and he noticed that wherever they went, devotees would practically faint when they see Prabhupada fall down. And so Archita asked Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I see that my God brothers and God sisters, they seem to have much more love for you there. So Prabhupada didn't answer right away. So Prabhupada then asked him, he said, do you like to do your service for me? And Archita said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, that is love. It's not that we have to faint and roll around, and no. Love means, that's why Prabhupada translated the word bhakti as devotional service, not just devotion. Prior to that, bhakti would be translated just as service, as devotion. But Prabhupada said, no, bhakti means devotional service. So at every moment, we have to be engaged in some kind of service. Now we know there are 9 processes of devotional service given by Prahlad Maharaj, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasam, Arshanam, Vandanam, Das, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. These are the 9 processes. So at every moment, we have to be engaged in one of those 9 processes. That is bhakti. We should be hearing, we should be chanting, we should be remembering, like that. Archanam, prayers, Vandanam. But practical, because some of the things that we do, especially nowadays, we have our eye devices and this and that, it may not look like, well, how is that related to bhakti? But no, if the spiritual master gives you some service that requires using some modern, like Prabhupada gave him his own example. He said, I'm using this microphone to give talks, so it's not a material interaction. The microphone has now been spiritualized because it's being used in Krishna service. So similarly, the cars, the computers, all modern devices. Prabhupada said we're not enemies of machines. Machines can be used. Obviously, we're preaching simple living, high thinking. Not as one of my witty godbrothers said, simple living and no thinking. No, we always have to engage the mind, the intelligence, everything in Krishna service. As Krishna himself says, one who hears this sacred conversation between me and Arjuna is worshipping me by his intelligence. So hearing Bhagavad Gita means using your intelligence, trying to understand what Krishna is saying. So today's topic is, why was Daksha envious of Lord Shiva? As we mentioned yesterday, if you trace out the genealogy, either by the material side, your father, his father, like that, or the spiritual side, your guru, his guru, we come back to Lord Brahma. Either way you go. In our sampradaya. In other sampradayas, Sri Sampradaya, they would go to Lakshmi on the spiritual side. But in our sampradaya, we trace out either side of our genealogy, we come to Lord Brahma. And we asked, why don't we get along as a family? Because we're contaminated. That's the point. So there was some contamination in Daksha's consciousness. Even though he's highly, highly elevated personality in the universe, there was some contamination there. And the contamination is from this feeling of everybody wanting to be in charge. Although Krishna declares, if we're followers of Krishna, and we're supposed to be, then Krishna declares that he is the supreme controller. Brahma also makes that clear. The very first verse of that 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita, everybody should know, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So beginning, very beginning, where Brahma, who is the head of our sampradaya, says, you must know this. Ishvara means controller. Parama, the supreme Ishvara, because everybody has some little control over something. Somebody now is the mayor of Sydney, and they are thinking they are controlling Sydney. And somebody's the mayor of the state. Which state is this? New South Wales, is that it? Yeah, so the governor of the state. So he's above the mayor. And above him is the prime minister, you say here, the top person, or president, whichever country you go to. So you keep going up and up and up and up, and then you come ultimately to Krishna. The supreme controller in the universe itself is Lord Brahma, but he acknowledges that he knows that above him is Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna. So whenever we feel a little or a strong desire to be the boss, we should remember this is not our path. Our path is to be the das. Another one of my witty godbrothers always says like that. Haribol Prabhu, you're the boss, I'm the das. So we should remember that. Material consciousness means I'm always being pushed by my mind to be the boss, to tell everybody else how to think, what to do, what not to do. But I don't want anybody to tell me what to think, how to think, what to do, what not to do. But this bhakti process is a process of surrender. We approach, or are supposed to approach, a spiritual master in that mood. As Sanatana Goswami says, Kayami, who am I? Why am I suffering the threefold miseries? That's the mood of a shishya, of a disciple. Please tell me how to get out of this miserable material world. Go back to home, back to God. So if we have that genuine desire, then we will hear carefully and execute carefully. But as Prabhupada said in Kali Yuga, people are not even interested. As we mentioned yesterday, we are chasing after Maya and Lord Chaitanya is chasing after us. So Prabhupada said formally the spiritual master would sit down and prospective disciples would come to try to take shelter of such a spiritual master. But in Kali Yuga, nobody has genuine interest in spiritual life. It's just another show. So Prabhupada said, the spiritual man, I had to come to you. He said, I was in Vrindavan. He could have stayed in Vrindavan enjoying Radha Damodar Association, all the wonderful devotees. And no, but on the order of his spiritual master, he came to the West at such great trouble. I know, just flying a few trips a year, it's such a botheration. Such a botheration. But Prabhupada went around the globe 13 times in 12 years. So it's not easy to do that, to be committed to saving others. And we don't have to try to save others, we just have to try to assist Srila Prabhupada in doing that. That's another thing to always remember. Don't ever think of yourself as a preacher. Once one of my godbrothers said to Prabhupada, you know, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes when I preach, and Prabhupada stopped him, you're not preaching, I'm preaching and you're helping me. So we start getting a big head when we think that we're preachers. We're not preachers. We're helping those who are helping Prabhupada. That should be the mood. So Daksha lost sight of that. He understands deep down, but he lost sight because the father-in-law, he's now the father-in-law of Lord Shiva. So the father-in-law always feels on a higher position than the son-in-law. Son-in-law should listen to the father-in-law. So he became a little bit contaminated with that mood of being in charge. And it will be explained as you go through this chapter. But again, being one big family, we should be very careful of holding on. The way to overcome this, just like we chant Shikshastakam every morning, the way to overcome that is to stay in this mood of being Lord in the grass in the street, tolerant in the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. But there's one part of the translation that was left out. Not requiring any respect yourself. Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. When we read the translation, we just say offer respects to others. But the other half is don't expect any respect on your own. Don't expect that. Because if you're thinking that like that, then you feel offended all the time. Somebody didn't say hello, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that, and you feel offended. But one who's in the right mood, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Don't expect any respect, and then you won't be disappointed when it doesn't come. You see? If you're always expecting to be honored because of something you did, that means you don't understand the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai savas. Ahankara mudatma karta itimanyate. This conditioned soul who's bewildered by the modes of material nature thinks himself to be the doer of activities that are in actuality being carried on by the material energy. So if we remember that, I am not actually doing anything. Our position as minute living entities, part and parcel of Krishna, is that we are desiring, and Krishna is allowing it to happen. We come up with so many desires. We want to fly. Okay, take up next birth as an eagle or a white parrot in Sydney and flying around. I see these white parrots flying all the time. You want to fly? Okay, you can become or if you do it by the yogic process, then you can take birth in Siddhaloka, where you're born with all 8 mystic yogic perfections. That's just the natural status of anybody who takes birth on Siddhaloka. So that's what we're doing. We are even in the Western world, they say man proposes and God disposes. So it's like that. We shouldn't forget that on the bhakti path. We are desiring, and Krishna is allowing things to happen. So where does the credit go? To us or to Krishna? If I'm desiring to be #1 book distributor, that's a genuine desire. That's okay. It's not puffed up to want to be #1 book distributor. But if it happens, who gets the credit? Krishna. Krishna allowed that person to say yes, and that other person to give you extra so you could give a few free books to somebody else, and so on and so on. It's all Krishna's arrangement. As I said yesterday, the spiritual master's duty is to teach us how to think properly, which means if you think properly, then you desire properly. But thinking properly means seeing things clearly. So that's Sambandhagan. Sambandhagan means being instructed by the spiritual master in the different categories, especially those 5 that are there in the Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara is the first one, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Those are the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita. So when one can clearly see and understand those 5 categories, then that is Sambandhagan. One is beginning to be trained to see things properly. Prabhupada once defined intelligence as understanding the spirit, being able to distinguish between spirit and matter, and understanding the source of both. That's intelligence. That's intelligence. Not how many PhDs you have and this and that. Because, in the Western world especially, but in India also right now, a lot of speculation. No clear knowledge. And they get excited about speculation. You see every day some news headline, using the JWT, the James Webb Telescope, we've now discovered that galaxies formed a lot earlier in the process of creation than we thought. And wow, how wonderful is this? So this will now enable us to perhaps figure out how things started in the beginning. And they like to try to bewilder those who have faith in religion, faith in God. I was once on a panel at USC, which is a very prestigious university in the Los Angeles area. So I was representing Hinduism. There was a Christian minister. There was an imam from Muslim path like that. And there was one atheistic scientist. So after some of the religionists made their statements, this atheistic scientist got up and said, "You're all very nice people, but you just believe that there is a God. Where did God come from? You say God created everything, but where did God come from?" And those who are not trained in Sambandhagan, they will scratch their head and say, "Oh, they don't know what to say." So of course, when my turn came, you know what I did? So I said, "Oh, so my dear friend, Mr. Atheistic Scientist, so you believe that everything started with a Big Bang, right? And that Big Bang was a result of some singularity exploding, right? Singularity means a point of dense pressure and like that, temperature, everything all condensed into one little point. So where did that point come from? Where did the singularity come from? You're asking where did God come from, so we have the right to ask you, where did the singularity come from?" So I told him, your so-called scientific presentation is also based on faith, on belief. You believe there was a Big Bang because it seems logical to you, but you can't prove it. You cannot prove it. We know that the fact that there is an expanding universe, that's explained in the Bhagavatam. When Mahavishnu exhales, all these universes come out in seed form, and then they continue to expand until he inhales, and then they contract and go back into his body. That is the explanation of the expanding universe. But they're thinking, we observed that the universe is expanding, so that means there must have been some kind of explosion. But if any of you have ever exploded anything, a firecracker, whatever, we know what happens. There's a big bang, and then all that material rushes out, and then it falls and settles, and then nothing else happens. It doesn't coalesce into planets, and life is formed. And so they're believing all this theoretical presentation that really doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So don't be bewildered by anybody with their so-called PhDs and whatnot. They're just highly trained speculators. We wound up with having 2 branches of the BI, Bhaktivedanta Institute, that Prabhupada himself created. The BI, he wanted his scientifically trained disciples to challenge these rascals, the Darwinist believers. So we wound up having 2 branches. One that was very, very proactive in challenging them, the Sadhaputta branch, and then you had the Bhakti Swarup Damodar branch, which was took a more pacifistic approach. They would have these conferences, synthesis between science and religion and things like that, invite all these scientists and try to. So they had one such conference in Mumbai a long time ago. Sadhaputta is now gone, Bhakti Swarup Damodar is gone. So they were both around at that time. So when Sadhaputta came back to America, he was telling us then, he said, it's amazing, these big, big scientists, PhDs, Nobel Prize winners, they are they literally shake when you tell them that we're simply presenting verbatim knowledge that comes down the Arohapanta. Because they're attached to the Arohapanta, figuring it out, speculating, oh, this new phenomenon, how to explain it, and this and that, and their eyes light up, and they get Nobel Prizes for speculating. But the example I gave of how their speculation changes their own so-called scientific presentation is something I experienced in my own life. When I was a child, I was born in '52. So they taught us in science class that at the bottom of the ocean there is no life because there's no light, it's cold, dark, the pressure is too intense. And I was thinking recently, did I really learn that? I went and checked, and yes, up until the 60s, until they were able to send submersibles down, and they saw that life was there. Even in these fissures in the Earth's crust, under the water, where gases are bubbling up, there are tube worms and things, and any environment in the ocean, all the way down to the bottom, there's life. But they were teaching us in school, there is no life at the bottom of the ocean. And then they had to change that. We used to think there was no life, but now we know. But Sariputta also made fun of him. He said, no, they used to know, and now they think. Because that's how they present their so-called scientific knowledge. If they teach you there's no life at the bottom of the ocean, and you write on the test, so I think they would fail you. Because they know there's no life based on their speculation. So their so-called scientific teaching is simply hear and regurgitate what we don't think. They don't want you to think. They present themselves as being great thinkers, but they don't want you to think. Whatever we tell you is a fact, you just regurgitate it on the test. So if we tell you there's no life on the moon, you better write there's no life on the moon. But we don't accept that. According to the Vedic paradigm, there's life everywhere because the living entities are spread all over the universe. So just as there are living entities that can live at the bottom of the ocean, where the scientists thought there could be no life, they're there. Similarly, you're thinking there's no life on the moon, but they're there. You just can't see it. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist and it's not vital. The example I use for that when I'm preaching in university is oxygen right now in this room, and we should probably get a little more oxygen by opening the windows and the doors. Anyway, all of us are still conscious because there's oxygen here. But can anybody see oxygen? Has anybody ever seen an oxygen molecule go by? No. But we know it's there and it's essential, it's vital. So similarly, the living force, the jiva, exists and it's vital. When the living soul leaves the body, we say, my father has gone. So Prabhupada said, no, challenge him. What do you mean your father has gone? That body you used to call your father is still lying there. All the chemicals that were there a moment ago are still there now. Why do you say it's gone? Oh, my father is gone. So intrinsically, every one of us knows that there's a living force that leaves the body at death. We may not be able to see it. That person didn't see that father's soul leave the body, but they know something has gone. So they say, my father has gone. And once the father has gone, we don't refer to the body as he or she anymore. We say it, burn it, bury it. You see? It's no longer appealing. So this is the beginning of spiritual understanding. The existence of the soul as separate from the body. And so we should know this firmly. Just with this one firm understanding, one can challenge these rascal scientists and their speculation. Because Prabhupada is saying they're thinking the body is just a bag of chemicals, so at death, all the chemicals are there. Fix it. If you don't know how to do it, find somebody who knows how to fix it. Just like with your car, most of us drive cars and most of us don't know how to fix cars, but we know somebody who knows how to fix a car. You call, in America we'd say AAA, the Automobile Society, or you call a local mechanic and they come and they know what to do, they fix it, and again you're driving. So why not the same with the body? If you think it's just a bag of chemicals, right? Hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, all these chemicals are still there. Bring in an expert to fix it. But they know intrinsically they can't, so they don't bother. They bury it, or they burn it, or you can't fix it. Some foolish people have their bodies frozen, hoping that in the future somebody will be able to fix it. But that was just another cheating scheme. They paid literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to have bodies cryogenically preserved. It's not going to happen. Once they turn off the refrigerator, it's just going to fall apart. So this is the beginning of real spiritual knowledge that we've had the privilege of coming in contact with. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I have to run to the airport. Maybe time for one question. Anybody? Yes. Chitta Hari Prabhu. I find that your English is pretty good. But all right, what do you want me to read? Well, he says here in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Lord Kapila spoke about devotional service under the influence of the three modes of material nature. And in the 4th Canto, the following types of devotional service covered by the gunas are illustrated. The story of Daksha is an illustration of devotional service in the mode of ignorance, which is the cause of destruction. Daksha got a goat's head, and for several kalpas in a row he expiates his sin. And even after that, he still had a penchant for criticism. So he cursed Narad Muni not to stay in one place for more than 3 days. What hope is there for those who see within themselves the anartha described in the story of Daksha? So, but this is the power of bhakti. Yes, one can execute devotional service in the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But ultimately, one has to rise above. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Triguna Vishaya Bheda, Nishtriguna Babharjuna. You have to rise above the three modes. Because originally we are above the three modes. This is what should keep us going. This is what keeps me enthusiastic in spite of all contamination, is that the living entity is by nature pure. Krishna says, Mamaya Mangsha Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We're eternally Krishna's parts and parcels. He is completely pure, so we're also completely pure. But because we're tiny, we can be covered by those three modes. So we should want to get out of them, want to get out of the three modes, the influence. And that is possible by this bhakti process. Any other process cannot do it. Jnana, karma, yoga cannot bring you beyond the modes. One can rise as high as understanding the Brahman. That's as high as you can go. Krishna says that in the 11th canto. Shabda Brahmani Nishnato, Nan Nishnayat Parayadi. Shamastasya Shamapala. He adenum ibarakshata. Krishna says. Shabda Brahmani Nishnato. One who is by their own strength come to the understanding of Shabda Brahman, that there's a Brahman existence beyond a spiritual reality. Nanishnaya Pareyadi, but they don't have any attraction to the Supreme, who is beyond just the impersonal Brahman. So the impersonalists, they want to merge into the Brahman. Shamastasya, Shamapala, is useless labor. Shramam, Shamastasya. He adenum ivarat. So it's just like nicely maintaining a cow who doesn't give any milk. He adenum. Denu means cow. Adenum means not a cow. So when is a cow not a cow? When she doesn't give any milk. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of her, but the point is, if you're taking care of a non-milking cow and you're expecting milk, you're not going to get anything. So they're speculating up to the way of Brahman, expecting that they're going to be liberated and happy eternally, but it doesn't work. Because only bhakti can get you. And that's why there's that verse, their intelligence is not pure. Because they don't have any regard for Krishna's lotus feet, then they have to come back down. They rise up by great austerity, thinking they're merged into Brahman. But Prabhupada said there are so many examples. They come back down, they have to get involved in at least altruism, opening schools and hospitals and stuff, because they're not tasting the sweetness of bhakti. Whereas a new devotee, just by chanting and dancing in front of Radha Gopinath, by taking prasadam, is feeling already more ecstasy than any impersonalist. Okay, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.